What is going on, guys? So I was actually super surprised to see how many requests I got for this video. I briefly mentioned in my last video, if you guys were interested in seeing the scientific theory on how I designed the split, to comment below, and I got a ton of comments, so here I am. Ask and you shall receive. And just so you're not just watching me talk the whole time, I will be overlaying this video with clips from my last lower body workout, which was a heavy strength focus day. Also, in my last video, I did link in the description box an article where I derived a lot of my inspiration for this training split. However, it does have my own twist to it, but if you're interested in checking that article out, it does have an in-depth explanation on a lot of the topics that I'm going to touch on in this video. And of course, there are a ton of different ways to design an effective program, and this is just one of the ways that you can get the most bang for your buck. Now, this split incorporates a combination of training concepts to take advantage of making the most gains in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of work, as frequently as you can recover from. And the first concept will seem pretty obvious, but it is based around specificity and priority. So if you want bigger glutes, then train your glutes. Therefore, you want to dedicate the majority of your training volume to that muscle group. Simply, just training that muscle more frequently is one way to increase total training volume. And so the next concept that you have to understand is the SRA curve, which stands for stimulus, recovery, and then adaptation. An SRA curve in a perfect world would look something like this, where you would induce a stimulus, allow enough time for recovery, and then the muscle adapts, i.e. grows, returns to baseline, and then you would ideally elicit another stimulus to continue the cycle. Recovery time varies depending on your level of training, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or an advanced lifter, and it also depends on the exercises that you're doing. For example, it'd probably take you a lot longer to recover from very heavy hip thrusts than just a lateral band walk. And with this in mind, within the world of all things booty, glute exercises can be split up into three main groups: stretchers, activators, and pumpers. And each type of exercise will have variables that will vary the length of the SRA curve, such as high and low muscle activation, range of motion, load on eccentrics, muscle length, and peak tension. Stretchers will generally take the muscle group through a bigger range of motion and have peak tension when the muscle is lengthened. These usually have a longer recovery curve and take about 3 to 4 days to return to baseline. Note that this 3 to 4 days is just a ballpark, and it does not consider the level of advancement of the trainee. So I just want to make that disclaimer that that is just a ballpark amount of time. And these are some examples of stretchers. Activators will have a peak tension when the muscle is shortened, and this high muscle tension and activation will prolong the adaptation time of the SRA curve and take roughly, and again, just a ballpark estimate, 2 to 3 days to return to baseline. And here are some examples of activators. And lastly are pumpers, which are exactly what they sound like. They have a short range of motion, show peak tension when the muscle is shortened, and they elicit a lot of metabolic stress. They have a short SRA curve time and take roughly 1 to 2 days to recover from and return to baseline. And here are some examples of those. Therefore, this split tries to take advantage of the SRA curve by incurring another training stimulus as soon as the glutes return to baseline, including the appropriate amount of sets and reps for each of the stretcher, activator, and pumper exercises. The way I've been personally structuring this split is that I'll have a lower body glute day, and then I'll actually take the following day as either a rest day, or I'll actually train another muscle group, whether that be like a back day, chest and shoulders, or arm day. And then right after that, I'll hit the glutes again. And as an intermediate to advanced lifter who has 5 years of training experience with an emphasis on my lower body throughout those 5 years, I personally find 1 day between glute sessions an appropriate amount of time for recovery. And considering the glutes are composed of a mixture of type 1 and type 2 muscle fibers, it's probably a good idea to include a variety of heavy and light loads to activate a broader spectrum of fiber types. Therefore, this program also incorporates an undulating periodization, meaning I alternate heavy loads in a lower 4 to 6 rep range and higher loads in the higher rep range of about 10 to 12 reps every other glute session. This program also incorporates a high amount of frequency, so hitting the same muscle group 4 times within the same week. And if your program is structured properly, that'll allow ample time for recovery between sessions. Additionally, a 2016 meta-analysis comparing training either twice a week versus only training once a week even when weekly volume was matched, showed a clear benefit of training twice versus once per week. And although there's not sufficient data to show 4 times is better than twice, a recent 2017 meta-analysis has shown an increase in training volume has a significant dose-response correlation to muscle hypertrophy. Therefore, increasing frequency is just a way to get that total weekly volume higher to get more gains. And lastly, I'd like to go over the frequently asked questions that I found in the comment section after I posted my last video that I'd like to address, and maybe it'll clear up some of the confusion or some of the questions that you might have had as well. And one comment that I got pretty frequently was that the workout seemed really short. Only doing 4 exercises is maybe less than you're normally doing on a lower body day. But normally, if you're doing a traditional bro split, you might train the glutes or your lower body maybe once or even twice a week. Considering that my program consists of 16 total exercises, that would be like cramming all 16 exercises in one training bout or in one day, or even just splitting that up into 2 days. That's a lot of training per session. And don't get me wrong, if you do train that way, you will probably still see results. However, you can see greater results by spreading it out over 4 sessions and not waste a lot of time in the gym on wasted sets. Even with just the prescribed 4 exercises, you can max out the muscle protein synthetic response more frequently throughout the week and get the most gains for your buck. And because after so many sets within the same training session, there are significantly diminishing returns, so you may not get that much out of those extra sets that you're doing past a certain point. Another consideration that you want to be taking is that you want to be training at a very high level of intensity. Put it in terms of RPE, or rate of perceived effort. You want to be doing your main movements, which are the first 2, at an RPE of 9, which means that if you were to do an appropriate weight of the prescribed amount of sets and reps, that once you reach the prescribed amount of reps, that you would only be able to do 1 more until ultimately going to failure. So RPE of 9 on the heavy days. And on the light days, I personally take the RPE as well pretty high. You're doing lower weight, but you're still doing a higher amount of reps. So you still want to be doing like an RPE of 8, which means if you were going to be doing the prescribed amount of sets on your light day, which is about 10 to 12 reps, you'd only be able to do only a couple more or 2 more if you're doing an RPE of 8 before you actually hit failure. So just don't go through the motions when you do a program or when you train. Actually train really hard. Another common question that I got was doing an alternative for a glute-ham raise if your gym doesn't have a glute-ham raise machine. And in a previous video, I've actually done this. I called it a Superman glute-ham raise. It's something I've been doing for a long time now because most gyms actually don't have a glute-ham raise. And if your gym doesn't, I will insert a clip right now to show you how I use an alternative for doing a glute-ham raise if your gym doesn't have one. And lastly, a common question that I got was how long will I be running this program? I'll generally run a program for about 8 weeks while I progressively overload, which means to increase weight or the number of reps each week as you go on in the program. After that, I'll do a deload for a week. And a good way to deload would be to do something like pumpers for an entire week, or you can lower your training intensity for that week and cut all your sets in half. After that, you can either start the program all over again, or you can start a new program if you're not seeing results. And that's it. What is going on, guys? Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm actually sitting here about to finish up the editing of this video. I use, for those who have ever asked, I use Final Cut Pro to edit my videos. What is Jeff? A lot of you have asked me in the past what kind of editing software I use, so that is the one that Jeff and I both use. And whenever anybody asks me about how I learned how to use Final Cut Pro, I always direct them to Skillshare. I actually heard of Skillshare through Jeff, and Skillshare is an amazing online learning platform that has over 17,000 courses in things related to cinematography, editing software, photography, even business and marketing, so it's really useful. I've personally been using the class Learn How to Edit on Final Cut Pro because I'm still kind of new to this. I'm also taking mobile photography for Instagram success. This is a class that teaches you how to take really amazing pictures and then edit them just using your phone. It's a really useful course. Skillshare starts at only $10 a month, so it's a really good deal, but they were kind enough to offer the first 500 people who click the first link in the description box to get 2 free months of unlimited access to all 17,000 courses. So go ahead and check out the first link in the description box. That is all I have for you. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you like this sort of content from me, please like the video so I know that you like scientific content and I can continue to produce it. If you're new, please subscribe and I will see you really soon. Bye.